Welcome to Risk 2019, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Markus Auer. I'm coming from a company called ThreatQuotient. Who has heard of ThreatQuotient before? Not a lot. That's the reason why I'm here. So, today I want to talk a little bit about a topic that's called cyber threat intelligence. Who has heard the term threat intelligence before? No one? Yes, you have. This is a kind of the wake-up question. Yeah. Everyone's talking about threat intelligence, and it became a bit of a buzzword, right? So what I would like to do today is talk a bit about what is threat intelligence, because there are a lot of definitions, and tell you that threat intelligence is supposed to be a very new approach in cyber defense, right? But threat intelligence is actually more than 2,500 years old. So what happened 2,500 years ago? 2,500 years ago, a very interesting person lived with the name of Sun Tzu, or Sun Tzu, I think as it's pronounced correctly. Who has heard of Sun Tzu before? Some of you? Great. So who was Sun Tzu? Sun Tzu was a very remarkable person. He was a general leading one of the largest armies in the world, in China, and he was a philosopher at the same time, which is a pretty interesting combination, general and philosopher. And the reason why Sun Tzu got so famous was he pretty much invented tactical warfare. At least he was the first one who wrote it down. And he wrote a book called The Art of War. Who has heard of that book? Yeah, great. Who read it? So, why am I telling you that? I was reading that book years ago already, and when I started at ThreatQuotient and got more and more into this threat intelligence space, I remembered that book and thought, let's read it again. And there were a couple of interesting things that came to my mind. So for those of you who know the book, you know there are some really good quotes in there. For those who haven't, it's really recommended to read it. And there's one quote that came across me that I would like to read to you. Sun Tzu said 2,500 years ago, if you know your enemy and you know yourself, you will not be beaten in a single battle. If you know your enemy but you don't know yourself, you will win one battle and you will lose one battle. And if you neither know your enemy nor you know yourself, you will always lose. And I thought, wow, this is exactly what we are doing, or what we want to do now in cybersecurity. Let's have a closer look at that quote. What does Sun Tzu say? As I said, 2,500 years ago. Sun Tzu says, in order to be successful, I need to know a lot about my enemy. I need to know who he is. I need to know where he is. I need to know the size of his army. I need to know what kind of weapons is he using. And I need to know what kind of motivation is why does he want to attack me? And I need to know the tactics and techniques he's using in order to prepare for the battle. That's what I would need to know about my enemy. At the same time, Sun Tzu says, I need to know myself. I need to know my assets. What do I need to protect, right? I need to know my priorities. What's more important for me? Is it the food that I want to protect for my civilians, or is it the tactical bridge over the river that gives me an advantage in warfare? What's my priority? What are my strengths? But also, what's more important, what are my vulnerabilities? Where can the attacker really hit me? I need to know my enemy, I need to know myself. And then Sun Tzu says, I need to filter and correlate this information in order to find out what is a real threat to me, right? So Sun Tzu says, if I know there's an enemy 500 miles away from my country, is that a threat to me? Not really, because I know it will take weeks, if not months, until the attacker approaches my territory. So I need to filter that out. I need to find out the relevance of this information about the enemy, and I need to think about my priorities. Where do I need to start? And if I have this filter and correlation between the enemy and myself, I need to share this information to the right place. So I need to have the right information at the right place, the right time. And then I can prepare for a battle, and then I can act. Does that make sense so far? Cool. So how do we now get to cybersecurity? So we talked a lot about threat information, right? And that's what Sun Tzu did 2,500 years ago. He was gathering information. When we are talking about threat data, you probably heard the term threat intelligence feeds, right? So this is information that tells you about your attacker. The problem is, when you get this information about an attacker from the outside, is it already intelligence? I don't think so. It's raw data, because there are 3 factors that need to come in place in order to become intelligence. Number 1, the data you get must be accurate, it must be detailed, and it must come from a reliable source, right? The data must be relevant to you. And the third is the data must come in timely, so you can act. Only if you have these 3 factors, then threat data is turned into threat intelligence, and then you are actionable. You can make decisions. If one of these components is missing, you can't act. If the data is relevant and timely, but not accurate, you will make the false decision, right? If the data is accurate and timely, but not relevant to you, well, you're wasting your time because it's not a threat. And if the data is accurate and relevant, but not timely, well, you simply don't have enough time to prepare, right? So this is what you need. How do we get to it? Let's make the jump back to Sun Tzu. Know about your enemy now in these days. Do we have sources that tell us about who our enemy in the cyberspace sense is? Absolutely. These are these external threat data feeds. And I call it specifically threat data and not threat intelligence feeds. So there is a number of sources that you can use who's telling you who is the attacker, what's his motivation, and what's most important is so-called IOCs. Who's familiar with the terminology IOC, indicator of compromise, right? What is an IOC? It's, for example, an IP address that has been seen where the attack is coming from, right? So there are numerous sources that you can use to learn about your enemies. Free open source sources, OSINT as it's called. There are a lot of government institutions, certs, that give you this information. There are commercial providers that are paid feeds that are doing nothing than gathering data about attackers. So what's the ultimate goal? Obviously, the idea is if you have enough information about your attacker up front, you could prepare for an attack. You could harden your network before the attack hits your network. That's the whole idea about this data. Now, when you start thinking about using this data, there are a couple of problems. Number 1, you will find that one source will be not enough. One single source will give you not enough data to be, remember, actionable. It must be detailed. So you will end up using 2, 3, 5, I've seen customers that using 15 different sources simultaneously to get enough data about the attack. Now, the first problem is, how do you work with more than one source simultaneously? How do you get the data together? That's the first challenge. The second challenge is the format. How do you get the data? One source gives you the information unstructured via a PDF. Government certs are very good at this. So they're doing analysis about an attack. They tell you this is the attacker. They tell you, okay, these are the IOCs, and give you a PDF with 20 pages. Here go, right? It's not very useful. So it could be in an unstructured format, right? The other source has a web API that gives you the data via the web. The third one is using the normalized sticks taxi format. There are blogs, there are RSS feeds, so multiple formats. So you have multiple sources, you have multiple formats, and that's where our job starts as a threat intelligence platform. You need a platform that can connect automatically to any data source that you want to use. So we are providing, so what are we? We are a software. I don't want to go into details on that. So we are a software that sits in your network. And we have out-of-the-box connectors to any threat data feed that's out there, about 150. So you choose what kind of source you want to use. We are connecting to these sources, and then we're taking the data automatically into a local database, regardless whether the information comes via PDF, via an API, via blog, via RSS feed. So automatically the data flows into a local database, and then we are doing three things. We aggregate the data, we normalize the data, and we deduplicate the data. And that's where we are building up this picture about who's the enemy and what are related campaigns. How is he acting? Is it a spear phishing attack? Is it a DDoS attack that has been seen? And what kind of indicators, IOCs, has been seen with this attack? IP addresses, URLs, hash values, right? So now we know what's out in the wild. So like Sun Tzu, I know now what are all the enemies out there. But Sun Tzu says, I need to know what's relevant to me, because only a fraction of these threats will be applicable to your network. So suddenly you have millions and millions of information, and now we need to find this needle in the haystack, which attack is relevant to your personal network. How do we do that? Well, like Sun Tzu says, we need to learn about ourselves. Are there sources that tell us about your local network? Absolutely. These are technologies that you are already using. Asset databases, CM technologies, sandboxing systems, ticketing systems, vulnerability assessment tools, right? All these tools are giving me information about your local network. And now, the really cool thing starts. So connecting to 100 feeds is great, but we cannot only connect to 100-something feeds, we have connectors to any security technology that you use locally in your network. So we can connect to any CM, any vulnerability assessment, any sandboxing system, and we are taking the data out of your local network. And that's how we are building up a picture. Who are you? What are your assets? What are your vulnerabilities? What kind of alarm messages do we see from your local detection technologies, right? So, we know the enemy, we know ourselves, and now the next step is about the relevance. What of these threats are relevant to your network? How do we do that? We are fusing now these two worlds on one single platform. One single database that has information about the attackers out there, and that has information about your local network in a single place. And we call that database the threat library. And library is a very good name, because if you want to know something about a threat, you go into the library and ask the library. And the library will tell you information about external attackers, information about internal threats in a single database. No data silos anymore, right? And now we can do a really cool things. So let me walk you. Let me walk you through one use case, so you've got to understand what we are doing. So let's assume we are getting a feed saying there's a new attack out there targeting a specific vulnerability, right? An exploit. So CVE number XYZ. CVE says everyone. So CVE is the term how vulnerabilities are described. So there's a new attack to an exploit that's attacking vulnerability CVE XYZ. That's what the information we get via the feed. Now you would like to know as fast as possible, is this relevant to me? Am I vulnerable to this attack? Can we find that out? Yes, we can. Assuming that you have any kind of vulnerability assessment technology. Scanners like Nessus or Tenable, Rapid7, Qualys, or whatever. These technologies tell you what kind of vulnerabilities do you have in your local network. And now what we do automatically, we get this feed, attack to CVE number XYZ. We ask your local vulnerability assessment tool, hey, for example, Tenable, not Nessus, that's pretty common. Hey Nessus, do you see this vulnerability in my network? And if yes, Nessus would report back to us. It's a bi-directional integration. Hey Markus, yes, you have 27 systems in your network that have this vulnerability. Wow. Now, this is relevant for me. I know there's an attack coming, that's the feed, and I know 27 of my systems are vulnerable. This is relevant to me. This could potentially harm me, right? And this information we're giving you within seconds. We are highlighting this in the platform via a scoring mechanism, color-coded. So red, hey, Markus, look into this. This is relevant, there's an attack coming and you are vulnerable. Do something. Within seconds. What can we do? What could we do now that we have this information? Any ideas? What action could we do immediately?
Shut down the system.
Yeah, exactly. Unplug the cable. Sorry? Patch the system. Correct. So what we could do is either you're working with platforms, so you would see this red flag. Okay. Try and patch it. If you have a ticketing system, we could connect to your ticketing system, like Remedy or Resilient or whatever, and open automatically a ticket, put any information about the attack and about the vulnerable systems into the ticket, and send it to Markus, who's responsible for patching. Now Markus knows, okay, I need to prioritize patching now. Oh, what did I just say? Prioritize patching? Isn't that always a problem? What do I need to patch? Of course, we have a patch plan, always. Yeah, normally we try to patch our critical systems first, and then we are going down to the server that runs the coffee machine, whatsoever. But it's a guessing, always. What do we need to patch first? Now imagine if you have that intelligence that tells you what you need to patch in order to protect you from an attack that's coming. Very interesting side effect. So we could help speeding up vulnerability management process. Okay, so Markus got this ticket and that says, Markus, stop everything, you need to patch these 27 systems immediately. Now, two things could happen. Markus could say, okay, I'm patching it, great, we are protected. But Markus could say, no, I can't patch these systems for various reasons. I've not tested the patch. The system would not run with this patch. So there are 100 reasons why Markus could say, I can't do it right now, but I have it on my radar. What else can we do to provide immediate protection to your network? So let's assume you can't patch, you're still vulnerable. What else could we do to protect your system? Immediately.
Maybe to exclude those information.
Sorry?
To exclude those data.
What do you mean exclude? We have malware that's spreading.
You have them on your system, you have them on your radar, and you are aware of those stuff.
Oh, of course, yes. So you could these systems that are vulnerable. So what you can do is you can try, for example, to block a port on a firewall. Absolutely. Absolutely. But there's something else we could do with these indicators, these IOCs. Together with the information there's an attack to this vulnerability, the feed probably told you, hey, we've seen the attacker from these IP addresses. So what we would do is, this is relevant, we are vulnerable, we would connect to your perimeter firewall and send these IP addresses as a block list update to your firewall and tell the firewall, hey firewall, for the next 2 weeks, as long as this is spreading, block any communication from these IP addresses where the attacker has been seen from. Automated process. You don't have to do anything. We are updating the block list on the firewall. So the firewall is getting more intelligent and would block any communication from these IP addresses over a certain period of time. Right? This is immediate protection. We're making it harder for the attacker to enter our network. So, firewall. We have some immediate protection. We probably excluded the systems via port block. We added IP addresses, these IOCs, into the perimeter firewall. What else could we do? So far, we just know there's an attack and we are vulnerable. What we don't know at this point is, has the attacker already hit my network? Are we already under attack? How could we find that out?
Searching open source intelligence stuff, forums, dark web.
Well, that's the information we already have via the feed. But what technology could help us to find out if we are already under attack, for example? It's your CM technology. Or any kind of log analysis technology that you are using. McAfee ESM, ArcSight, QRadar, Logarithm. These are the technology that can search the logs for information, right? So, like any other technology, we can connect to any SIEM. So what we would do is these IP addresses that we send to the blocklist of your firewall, we would send to your SIEM. Who's using a SIEM technology already? What are you using? ESM, McAfee, ESM? ArcSight, anyone ArcSight? ArcSight? No? QRadar? No? Okay. Anyway, so let's take ESM. So I would send these IP addresses to my McAfee ESM and say, hey ESM, start looking for these IP addresses in the log files. And now if ESM would pick up one of those IP addresses, has a sighting, it would report back to our platform as an alarm, hey Markus, the IP address you gave me, I've just seen it in a log file. Wow. And now it's red alert, because now it could mean the attacker is already in my network. We need to start a different process. We need to start an incident response process and see what's happening, right? And the next thing I would do is I would tell ESM not only look for these IP addresses from now on, but if I have the possibility, I would say, this attack is already going on since some weeks. Hey ESM, search the log files for this IP address over the past 4 weeks. And now if ESM would come back and say, hey Markus, the IP address you just gave me, I've seen it in a log file 3 weeks ago, is in my network already since 3 weeks. So with this process, we are turning data that was meaningless in the past. That IP address 3 weeks ago, it was just an IP address. With information, with intelligence that we have today, we are turning meaningless data, or we can turn meaningless data, into something meaningful, and obviously speed up detection processes and response processes. Is that cool? Great. So, this was one use case. I'm a bit running out of time. There are a couple of obviously other use cases that we can tell you. The last thing I want to tell you before I'm going to my summary is, going back to Sun Tzu, know your enemy, know yourself. We found the relevant threats, and now it's about sharing information. Getting the right information to the right place at the right time. Let's go back to that central threat database, the threat library for a second. Who would work with such a database? Well, it's obviously the security team. Whether you have a SOC, or it's just the IT manager, or you already have a dedicated threat intelligence team, everyone is working with the same data. The problem within security teams, especially when there are more than one person, is they are creating data silos automatically. The person has a special task and is creating information, but it's often not combined with other information. Now imagine everyone from the security team is working with the same database, with the same data. So they have an overall view about what's going on in the security team. So that's the first thing. The second thing, we talked about it. We talked about our security infrastructure, we talked about patch management. That's where we would send IOCs to, right? The IP addresses, to my firewalls, to my SIEM. We would take back the alarms if one of my detection technologies would pick it up, and we would reflect that with a higher threat score in the database. But we also might have other teams in the company that would be involved in cyber defense. For example, risk management. The risk management team is not really interested in IOCs, in IP addresses or hash values. They would like to get detailed information about who is the attacker, what's his motivation, why could he attack us, where is he coming from. That's the information that the risk management wants, right? And then also we have the board, the C-level. They are normally not interested, are we attacked by APT 28 or 29 or 30 or whatever. They want a security status. What's our overall security status? They want a traffic light system. Red, amber, green, right? Are we good or do we have a problem, right? So, regarding, or depending what kind of part of your company we are approaching, whether it's technology, your sensors, whether it's analysis team, whether it's the board, we can format the threat data and send it automatically the right way, at the right time, at the right place. Sharing information. Okay, so I think we covered all 4 points. Know your enemy, know yourself, find relevant threats, share information. That's about what we do. As a kind of a summary, a couple of points. It's all about threat data. It's all about actionable threat data. The data is there. You just need a platform that makes it easier for you to analyze the data and create something meaningful out of it, right? Well, you need to do your homework. What do I mean by that? Well, we got great sources that tell us who the attacker is, but really, do we know ourselves? Do we know our network? Do we know every asset in our network? There's no need to answer. I know it's a challenge, but obviously, this is the homework that we need to do, because you can't protect what you don't know. Any asset that's not on your radar could be attacked, and you don't even know you're vulnerable to that if you don't know the asset. So you need to kind of think of processes and probably technologies that tell you more about your network, right? Change and automate processes. You understood what ThreatQuotient is. We are not the next silver bullet detection technology. We are an operations platform. We are solely here to speed up processes in incident detection, response, threat hunting, security analytics. Tasks that you already do could take an hour maybe, we can shrink that time down to 5 minutes, right? A good example is the task from an incident responder who gets a piece of information on the table. So let's say the CM spits out an IP address and says, hey, this IP address is suspicious. Well, what's the value of a single IP address? Not a lot. There's a lot of work the incident responder needs to do to create context around this IP address. What is it? Is it a false positive? Do we have a problem? What is he normally doing? He's going to various tools and web pages to get information like virus total, IP2 location, Google, whatsoever. And this is all these tasks the incident responder can do out of the platform. So virus total, who's using virus total? Probably some, yeah. So that's a part I couldn't really cover, is we have a place that we call an adaptive workbench. You can integrate your own tools that you're using into the ThreatQ platform, like virus total. So the CM says, this IP address is suspicious. The incident responder just makes a right click, virus total. We send this IP address to virus total, get the enriched information back into the platform, and verify, yes, we have a problem or not. 2 seconds. So, making decisions faster, do we have a problem or not? Speeding up. Assess your current technology landscape. What do I mean by that? A lot of companies are still thinking, okay, what's the next silver bullet detection technology that we can add to our landscape, right? That's a problem, because we are ending up with a lot of tools that do not work together. I know companies that use up to 30 different security technologies. Is that really necessary? Do you really need the next silver bullet technology? Or is it better to look what you already have and make this work together with an operations platform, right? What do you really need? Well, you need your antivirus, you need your firewall. A SIEM is great, absolutely. Vulnerability assessment, like a scanner, is fantastic. That's already about it. Yeah? Sandboxing would be cool to do malware analysis. What do you need more? If you have a platform that makes all the things more efficient, think about it. Start your CTI program now. I know that's easy said, but start thinking about how threat intelligence could enhance your security, could change your security approach, could speed up processes, could automate processes that you are doing manually. It's all about getting faster. That's the only way forward. So I'm in security since 20 years. I worked for pretty much any technology. I worked for a CM vendor, an IPS vendor, a network access control man, an email scanner, whatever. But with ThreatQuotient, I found out it's not about the next technology. It's about speeding up processes that could take us one step further inside defense. Any questions?
A lot.
A lot. Okay. So how are we doing on time? So I think
About 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I think.
Okay. So maybe 1, 2 questions. Then I'm the rest of the day I'm here. So please attack me. Yeah.
Which firewall is for?
Sorry.
Firewall. Which firewall is?
Anything. Palo Alto,
Open
Cisco.
source.
Well, so 2 things. We are supporting the biggest one, Palo Alto, Cisco, Fortinet. The great thing about our platform is, normally we do support 80–90% of the technology that you're using. But there's always technology that we haven't even heard of. So the platform is open. It has an API, it comes with a software development kit. So if you have a technology that has any kind of API, we simply write a connection, and the connection is done via Python scripts. Very easy. It's open to anything that has an API, so you can connect anything you have, which we always see. Because when we come into play, the security landscape is set. And obviously, we do not want the customer to change the security landscape, but we need to adopt to what's there. So we are very good to adopting to other technologies. Maybe one other question? Sure.
What would be the average number of daily alerts?
That's a great question. I would answer that like that. We would reduce the amount of daily alerts dramatically. Why? Imagine that workflow. We are getting data, threat information in, we are checking it for relevance, and we're sending only information that's relevant to your network, to your sensors. So if your detection technology picks up something, then the possibility that it's a false positive is close to 0. This is exactly how we filter out the noise. That's always a challenge. Like you have 200 alarm messages. You can't handle 200 alarm messages. And probably 99% are not real alarms, as we all know. Now, if you have a platform that is filtering out that 99% as noise and highlight this 1%, you only have, what is the math? 1% of 200. You only have 2 alarms that are relevant that you need to focus on. Anything else, we are taking care, we are checking it. If something changes, we are highlighting it again. So you just need to focus on the high severity errors. That's what we do. Filtering out the noise. Great. Okay, I think I'm done. Thank you very much.